What if the thing that is ruining your life is not a dramatic failure, not a visible addiction, not a public collapse, but a series of tiny, almost invisible habits that feel harmless, reasonable, even comforting? What if the real danger is not what shocks you, but what slowly reshapes you while you're not paying attention? This question sits at the heart of one of the most misunderstood stories ever written. When people think of the Lord of the Rings, they imagine epic battles, dark lords, heroic speeches, and magical landscapes. But that is not where the true horror of the story lives. The most disturbing character in the entire mythology is not a tyrant or a monster born from darkness. It is a small, broken creature who once lived a quiet, ordinary life. A creature who did not fall all at once, but faded. His name is Gollum. Before he became Gollum, he was Smeagol. And that distinction matters more than most people realize, because Smeagol was not evil. He was not powerful. He was not special. He was simply human in the way that matters most, vulnerable to justification. As creator of this character, J.R.R. Tolkien was not merely a fantasy writer. He was an Oxford professor, a scholar of language, myth, and human psychology. And when you read his work carefully, you begin to see something unsettling. Tolkien understood something most people never confront, that corruption rarely announces itself. It whispers, it negotiates, disguises itself as necessity, entitlement, and survival. Smeagol did not wake up one morning and decide to become a monster. He did not plan to lose his identity. He didn't think, I will sacrifice my future for this object. Instead, he told himself a story. A small one, a reasonable one. A story that sounded harmless. It's my birthday. That single sentence is one of the most psychologically revealing moments in all of literature. Because in that instant, Tolkien shows us how the human mind reframes desire as entitlement. Smeagol did not see himself as greedy. He saw himself as justified. And justification is where the soul begins to rot. This is what we will call the Gollum effect. The Gollum effect is the slow erosion of identity through innocent-seeming habits that you protect, defend, and rationalize. It is not the destruction of the self through catastrophe, but through accumulation, through small surrenders that feel too minor to matter until you look back one day and no longer recognize who you've become. The ring in Tolkien's story is not just a magical object, it is a symbol. It represents anything that promises power, relief, pleasure, or escape without requiring growth. It is the phone that feeds you endless stimulation, the habit you use to numb discomfort, the identity you cling to because it excuses your stagnation. It is your precious, and just like Smeagol, you do not lose yourself overnight. You lose yourself one explanation at a time. The first habit that begins this process is justification disguised as self-care. Smeagol did not say, I want this because I am weak. He said, I deserve this because I have suffered. And this logic is everywhere in modern life. We suffer it. Instead of asking what will actually heal us, we reward ourselves with what deepens the wound. We treat discomfort as currency. Stress becomes permission. Fatigue becomes an excuse. I worked hard, so I deserve this. I had a bad day, so this doesn't count. I'll fix it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. The second habit is invisibility. When Smeagol first used the ring, its primary power was not dominance, it was disappearance. He vanished. And instead of using that invisibility to act boldly, he used it to watch, to spy, to listen, to observe others living while he remained hidden. Over time, he stopped participating in life altogether. This is one of the most haunting metaphors Tolkien ever created, because we now live in an age where invisibility is effortless. You can watch others succeed, fail, love, create, and struggle all without being seen yourself. You can consume endlessly without ever risking exposure. But what feels safe is slowly lethal. Because when you do not act, you atrophy. Smeagol became a pair of glowing eyes in the dark, consciousness without contribution, spectator who knew everything and did nothing. And this is what passive consumption does to the modern mind. It creates the illusion of engagement while hollowing out agency. The third habit is cynicism. Tolkien describes how Smeagol stopped looking at the beauty of the world and became obsessed with roots, decay, and hidden rot. He stopped looking up and started digging down. This is not wisdom. This is fixation. It is the belief that seeing darkness makes you intelligent, that exposing corruption equals insight. But when you only look for what is wrong, your perception becomes poisoned. You lose the ability to recognize goodness, growth, and possibility. You mistake negativity for realism. And, eventually, like Smeagol, you forget what the sun looks like. Cynicism feels powerful, but it is actually a defense against disappointment. It is easier to believe everything is broken than to risk caring. And then comes the fourth habit, avoidance of light. Smeagol began to hate the sun. He called it the yellow face. It hurt his eyes. It revealed him. So he retreated into darkness, into caves where nothing challenged him, where nothing demanded change. This is what comfort zones really are. Not rest, but concealment. They protect you from pain, but they also protect you from growth. And over time, what was once relief becomes imprisonment. By the time Smeagol reaches this stage, something terrible has happened. His mind has fractured. He begins to speak to himself, to argue, to divide into voices. This is not madness, it is isolation. When you remove all external correction, your internal dialogue becomes law. Excuses become wisdom. Weakness becomes truth. You cannot heal a corrupted mind using only the same corrupted mind. And this is where part 1 ends, not with fire or collapse, but with something far more dangerous, quiet acceptance. Because once you accept the cave, the ring, the voice, and the justification, you stop noticing the loss. Okay. And that is how the Gollum effect truly takes hold. There is a moment in Tolkien's story that is almost unbearable to read if you understand its psychological weight. It happens quietly, without spectacle, on a narrow staircase carved into the side of a mountain. For a brief instant, the corruption pauses. The monster softens. The past flickers back into existence. Smeagol almost returns. He reaches out not to steal, not to deceive, but to connect. For the first time in centuries, the part of him that was once innocent surfaces. And then, in a single, misunderstood moment, it vanishes forever. This is the final habit of the Gollum effect, reactive identity. When Smeagol is treated as a monster, he decides to become one. Not because it is who he is, but because it is what others expect. This is one of the most brutal truths Tolkien ever embedded in his work. If your morality depends on being understood, you will fail. If your growth depends on being validated, you will collapse the moment you are doubted. True character is not revealed when you are praised. It is revealed when you are misjudged. Okay. And here is where Tolkien draws a sharp contrast. Because Smeagol is not the only one who carried the ring. There was another hobbit, small, afraid, unremarkable. His name was Frodo Baggins. Frodo felt the same temptation, the same pull, the same exhaustion. But he did two things Smeagol never did. First, he did not isolate himself. Smeagol began his descent by severing his closest bond. Frodo began his journey by accepting help. He allowed himself to be supported, corrected, and even carried by Samwise Gamgee. And this is not a small detail. Tolkien is telling us something essential. You cannot fight corruption alone. The second difference is even more important. Frodo never called the ring a reward. He never called it precious. He called it a burden. And how you name something determines how it controls you. Smeagol saw his vice as a gift, a toll, saw it as a weight. That single shift in perception changed everything. Kaz, when you see your bad habits as rewards, you protect them. When you see them as burdens, you remove them. This is the reversal of the Golem effect. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop hiding from light. You stop consuming invisibly. You stop letting isolation distort your thinking. You stop letting other people's misunderstanding define your behavior. And most importantly, you stop calling the thing that is destroying you precious. Token's final warning is brutal but honest. Golem does not get redemption because there is a point of no return. Okay? But the story is not written to condemn you. It is written to warn you. You are not Golem yet. Okay? But you are closer than you think if you keep defending the habits that hollow you out. The phone you cannot put down. The comfort you refuse to leave. The justification you repeat. The invisibility you hide behind. The bitterness you mistake for wisdom. The fire is still an option. Not literal fire, but conscious sacrifice. The willingness to destroy what feels comforting, but costs you your future. To throw away the habit, the identity, the excuse, even when your mind screams that you deserve it. Because the real tragedy of Golem is not that he was corrupted. It is that he once had a choice and delighted until it vanished. Do not wait. And that is where your story diverges.